Welcome to the RobatDesk podcast. I'm Rob Lazzi. Today with me, John Hitchens. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Rob. How are you?
Good. I just want to let you know that we have a lot in common. I don't know if you've realized this in some of our conversations. Actually, we don't have a lot in common. You're way cooler than I am. You're a fighter pilot.
I didn't want to tell you that, but I was going to try to correct you later.
Oh my gosh. I was like, there's certain people you go like, he makes me look bad in life. Like I can't like you're a fighter pilot. You've started an organization to help people with mental health. Did I mention you were a fighter pilot? Like what? Okay. So then what instruments do you play?
Was a fighter pilot. Now, what are you asking me? I'm sorry. I interrupted you already.
Was a fighter pilot. So you're probably one of those like 5 tool guys. Like what instrument do you play? What band have you been in? Like,
sorry, I do not play an instrument. I've married someone that did. She plays piano, so I don't have to. I just get to listen.
Okay, and then I'm assuming you're an athlete too. You probably played sports at a competitive level.
I did. I played football and wrestled in high school and wrestled in college.
See, and then I'm just going, how do I keep up? Like, I'm just glad like we weren't in the same like dating range pool area. I would have never been able to compete with you. Like, it's just like, no, he's hanging around people. I'm going to go somewhere else. Like,
I'm not that cool, Rob. Really, I'm serious.
Oh no,
you would have. A lot of people competed against me and were well above me.
All right, we'll put humble on there too now. Jeez. So you started the organization Hiswell Homes for mental health warriors.
Yeah, and
that's the big thing we're talking about. What got you into that world of wanting to help people that are struggling with mental wellness? Is that the correct term?
There's different terms, but there's mental illness, mental health conditions, and they're a little bit different. But it all references the area that we're going to be playing in and trying to help people in. And the way I got started in that was that I started going to a church and tithing and trying to handle my money the way the church had talked about. And I decided that I wanted to do more than just tithe to the church. I wanted to see something where I could see results, that I could see something happening. And so I was trying to sell insurance on the side other than flying for American Airlines. And I decided that I would try to sell this insurance, house insurance. So if you lose your house.
Are you the guy that's been trying to get a hold of me every time my phone rings that I don't know who it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I got really good at calling people and irritating them, but I didn't sell that much insurance, so I didn't have that much money. So I was using that money to touch people's lives. So if I ran into somebody and I thought I should help them, then I use that money to do that. And at the end, I always saved up money so I could go all the way to the end of the year. So at the end of the year, I had money left over, and I called an organization called St. Agnes Outreach, which is down in Dayton. And they had a program which since has been canceled, but they had a program where they would go around to all the group homes in the Dayton area and pick up the people in those homes that wanted to come. And they would feed them a meal, give them a hot meal. They'd play bingo. They would allow everybody to win. They'd sing songs. And what they would give them when they won was just items in the back of the room, like shoes, clothes, deodorant, stuff like that. And so I heard about this organization. So I called up the individual that was running, which at the time was Marie Brose, and she has since moved on to Canada. But she was a very smart lady and said, "Hey, why don't you come down and see what our needs are versus just sending money?" And I said, "Okay, I'll come down." So the next Tuesday they had it. I went down and saw what they did. And eventually she talked me into volunteering. And I was calling bingo one day, and she comes up to me afterwards and goes, "I know you had some money," because I had asked her, and what I did that year was they had a need for winter coats. A lot of them didn't have winter coats. Well, I happened to go into Sears, and after that, looking for a tool or something, and I ran into a department that, after the end of Christmas, they had all these winter coats for sale. I mean, they were $20 for these really nice coats. So I just grabbed a bunch of them and took them down there to them. So she goes, "I know you had some money a while back. I was wondering if you had some money to fix hole in the ceiling in one of these homes." I go, "What?" I go, "What do you mean fix?" And she goes, "Well, it's about 3 foot wide, and it's pretty big, and it's been there for a couple months, and nobody's fixing it." I'm like, "What?" I said, "You don't want me fixing anything. I fly planes. However, I may be able to find somebody that can fix it." She goes, "Well, I'll take you down there." after we get all this done. So we get done, I jump in her car with her, and all the way there, she's preaching to me about, now, John, this is going to be bad. This is one of the worst. It's not the worst homes, but it's not going to be pretty. And I don't want you getting all upset. And I go, I'm good. I'm good. So we got to go in this house, and the rails up to the house are just all shaky. You almost fall over trying to hold on to them. I'm in front of her, and I go to reach for the doorknob, and there's no doorknob on the door. And I'm like,
Oh,
and I turn around and look at her like, what's this? And she goes, knock. There's a latch inside, and they'll let you in. So I knock real hard. Nobody comes. Knock again. Finally, somebody opens up. And as I open the door and step in, the smell overwhelms me. Okay.
wow.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I walk on down through the hallway, and there's bedrooms along the way. Well, I look in one, and there's a guy sitting there, and he waves at me. So I go to step in and say hi. And as I get closer to his bed, at the bottom of it, I see these little bed bugs on the bed, and I
Ooh.
just back out and go, hi, it was great talking to you. And I zoom down the hallway some more to the kitchen. I go through the kitchen, and it's disgusting. I mean, totally just pans and bugs. I mean, I just couldn't believe it, Rob. And then I finally get to where she's talking the dining room, and sure enough, it was raining that day. There was like 3 or 4 buckets on the floor and a big old hole in the ceiling of the dining room. And I
Wow.
turned to this little sweet lady, and I go, I'm not fixing anything. I said, I'm calling the state and getting this place closed. I go, my brother owns brand new nursing homes, brand new, and he gets written up all the time for little stuff.
Yeah.
And they're inspecting him. I don't know how this place is functioning or operating. I'm going to get it closed. And she grabs me by the elbow and looks up at me and says, John, that's really good. I did that 20 years ago. I got the news media involved, and I got the place closed. And not only that, I was really happy about it. I was celebrating it. And then winter came, and I found out that they weren't able to place one of the individuals. And so he didn't have a home, and he froze to death underneath the bridge that winter.
Oh,
So she said, it's easy to close these places, John, but you need to find a better way. They do have a roof. It's not great. They do have some foods, clothing. So don't throw them out. Go find a better way if you're going to do this. And I have no idea why, but I turned to her and said, okay, I will. And I then went and eventually started working on that home. And the end story was I was actually able to close the home and move all 25 people to another home.
oh,
It
wow.
wasn't much better, but we would be able to get efficiencies, and I helped run it, and we were able to do a lot more than we were. And we actually closed that home. So then that's how I got started anyway.
Wow. No, like talk about like, hands and feet, like, knee deep in it, like seeing that firsthand. Like when you said, like, how many times do we give money to places or organizations and you never really see the real needs?
Well, and that's what we really need to get across to people. And when we build this platform, we're working on an online platform, is we really need to get the idea, the need. When I started taking over those 2 homes, the whole idea at first, I would give people an idea. I'd call people up, and they just couldn't see it. So eventually what I started doing was taking people through the home.
Whew.
And when they saw it, I don't think I lost anyone. I either got a donation or they volunteered and stayed and helped me with the project. They become a Hiswell Homes volunteer. So you have to be able to see it. And so we need to really do a good job of trying to get people out there to see what they're living in.
No, that's a great point. When people can't see it, it's kind of, just like anything, when you out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. And this is what during the time frame, I was really upset with, is that if you remember the border crisis, when people were, and maybe rightfully so, really getting upset of how we treat people at the border, I looked at everything I can find. I didn't care whether it was liberal or Republican or in between. I was trying to find what kind of a price were we spending to house those people daily on the border. And the dollar figure, the lowest dollar figure, and there was some much higher than this, but the lowest dollar figure I found was $135 a day we were spending down there.
Whoa.
Do you know what we pay in Ohio and almost every other state for the people that do nothing more than have a mental illness? They get $35 a day. $35 a day to live on. So if you think about that, now you know why when you walk in a home and there's a hole and it's raining and it's horrible and it's not very clean and there's not very good care in it, that's why. $35 a day.
Well, that comes out to what? Almost like 12 grand a year, maybe.
Yeah. It's like, you know, what, 12, maybe 1100, 1050 or something a month. I mean, you can't board a dog a lot of times for that price, you know, and now we're trying to house people. But again, because people don't know about it, they don't see it, they don't recognize it. When they, you know, if the news media would have done to the mental health arena what they did to the border, we would hopefully have better things like that. So that's a huge part of this. And that's why I love that you're doing this podcast, is that everything I do or say, we get it out to more people, and more people realize, wow, this is a huge crisis. And it is a crisis. It's just the federal and state government, because of who the people are, they don't really produce. I mean, some people are fighting for it, but we don't have the will and haven't had the will to fix this problem. So that's what we're going to try.
Well, what I appreciate with what you're doing is, like, I'm always not a big believer, like, it's not maybe the government's sphere to fix this problem. It's the church's issue. It's the, you know, people like you, people that have the passion for it, to go, like, you know what? Because, like, when's the last time we said, hey, the government has done a better job than this in the local church? And
never. And that's the problem, I think, is the church has allowed the government to take over their rules, and they don't do it very well. And that's what one of the things we're really going to target, is to go back into churches with training and information to get them excited, and to go into each church and give them resources to help the people that are in their church that have someone, or they have a mental health condition. And so that's one of the main areas we're going to start at, is going back into the churches and talking to them about this, because it's starting to wake up everywhere. And I think it's a perfect time for us to do what we're doing and starting to do, because the word's getting out there. And I think that the time is now to move hearts to try to help these people.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What's the, like, is there been a point, like, in like recent history, where this has become, like, I forget when, but it seemed like somewhere maybe in the 80s, they closed more mental facilities down.
And yeah, this is amazing. Here's a phenomenal, another stat that I just love. I don't love it. It's just the exact opposite. But yeah, I think it was actually in the late 70s, early 80s, like you said, they came out and decided that the psychiatric hospitals and stuff were horrible. And I'm not saying they were wrong. They probably were. But the plan was just to shut them down. There was no plan really to, find a better way, or to clean up the psychiatric hospitals and housing that was out there.
They never did that to the IRS? Like, hey, this is horrible, let's just shut it down.
Yeah, let's shut it down. Maybe we could get them shut down. I don't know. With that, we could take that money and build homes. You know, right? Don't get me going, Robert. A lot of federal institutions and stuff, we could probably shut them down and wouldn't even notice they're gone. And we could save a lot of money that way. But I shouldn't say all that. But the other thing is,
in the 70s and 80s, you were saying they started closing these facilities down and there were some probably horrid practices going on in there.
Exactly. And so it was. I'm not saying there were problems, big problems, but we didn't solve it. We just made it worse. So what we did was we closed all those places. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Back in the day, when that was all going on, we had over, I think it was 500 or 600,000 people housed in these institutions, homes, and all the stuff that they ran. Okay. Mm-hmm. Today, we have about 74,000 people housed in those facilities. So now the population has exploded in Ohio and over the country. Where do you think all those people are? Do you think our mental health conditions have just decreased that much that we only need 74 housing?
I think social media has solved all mental illness. That's where, like, since that's gone around, I think people are just more mentally stronger than they've ever been, John. That's gotta be it, right?
Oh my God. Yes, Rob, I agree with you 1,000%. We just need to start up a new Twitter or something so we can help more people.
Absolutely.
I'm going to forget housing people and start Twitter too, or something.
No, like, I mean, in recent history, especially as communication is more, rampant or easier to do, and you can, the news travels that much quicker these days. And when you talk about the numbers and the changes, you kind of the information passes so much quicker. Like, why has this been such a hole that people have just sort of pushed aside, do you think? I mean, there's more awareness going on about it, but I think it's kind of like they'd rather wear a pin than do anything.
Well, and that's the thing, Rob. The stigma is a huge area. We talk about 5 different barriers, but stigma is the first one on there. We call it SHAC, is the acronym for the
Okay.
barriers, but stigma is the first one. And it's stigma in them themselves, but then throughout. I mean, when we ran homes, this is how bad things are, is that we ran a home. We had 45 individuals in that home over the Christmas holidays, and we had one family member show up for the entire holiday season to see their person in
Oh,
there.
wow.
So they're abandoned not only by everybody else, but even their family gets burnt out. It's a difficult job when someone is really struggling in ways that they can. So the stigma about who they are and what they are and what mental health and mental illness is turns a lot of people off. I mean, I tell everybody all the time, if I was, raising money for babies or dogs or trees, I would have a lot better chance of getting donations than I would for someone that's struggling with mental health conditions. It's just our society has an attitude about it that should, and that's something we're trying to, when you look at our visions, that's one of the visions we say are critical, is that mental health illness and conditions will be looked at as other medical conditions. I mean, if you get a broken arm or two broken legs, people don't shy away from you. People, surround themselves to help you. If you get cancer or something like that, my son had cancer and I've had cancer, and people came out of the woodwork to support me, to pray for me, to help me, to volunteer, to do anything for us. It was just amazing, the outpouring.
Mm-hmm.
None of that happens if I tell them I have a mental illness.
Do you think that's because, like, at least, like, say you broke a leg, or especially cancer is very non-discriminatory. There's obviously some things you can do to, in certain areas. I don't want to say there's nothing people do, but for the most part, it's non-controllable if you're going to get it or not. It's pretty random.
Yeah.
And do you think people think, like, with mental illness, especially when you start looking at like a homeless population or people that can't work, that there's a thought, and I know I have this thought, is where they made decisions in their life to get there.
Yeah.
It's not a random act.
And that's not true at all. I had a great friend, and that's probably one of the reasons that I don't think of it as that he was the start of me in this, because when I saw the plight of the people in the building is what got me started. But I had a great friend that was in pilot training with me. His name was well, maybe I shouldn't say his name, but he was a great friend of mine. And I mean, I loved him, and we had a blast for the year-long pilot training. He got assigned to what's called a Sherpa to Europe after his first assignment in a 130. And so he was over there. He's probably 25 maybe at the time. And him and another buddy are flying an airplane, and it catches on fire. Okay. Oh. And so they're struggling to get the airplane back to base before they crash. And it doesn't look like they're going to get it back, but eventually, obviously they do. But it was a extremely stressful situation. Okay. Life and death, we're not going to make it, that sort of thing. Months after that, he starts having mental issues to where something just stops firing correctly or not producing the right chemicals in the right amount. And eventually he gets so bad, they have to medically discharge him from the military.
Oh, wow.
He lives in San Francisco. So he went out there, and then one day he went into a bookstore and got in an argument with a guy about a book. He jumped over the counter, beat that guy up, went out right after that, got a rent-a-car, and started going down the street, running into cars with his rent-a-car. Okay. They go and arrest him and put him, because of that, 2+ years in the San Francisco mental hospital, prison, basically, not hospital, prison. And for 2.5 years, they tried to put medicines in him that would try to help that situation, to calm him down, to help with the things going on in his mind. And he did nothing other than, have a stressful situation that something happened up there. So he's in there for 2.5 years. I go out and visit him, and I'm just heartbroken, because this was a friend that I could talk and be with, and he was not the same. Mm-hmm. But eventually they try an experimental drug from him. I don't even think it was approved yet. They went to Europe to get it and got approval to just try it on him one time. And they put it in him, and everything started changing. He started being John again, And so they finally let him out. He starts a new life. Everything's going great. He finds a lady he wants to marry. She and him are like fit like a glove. They're having a great time. He tells me they're going to take a trip, a kind of a pre-marriage trip to Madrid. And so they get on the airplane and fly over. Well, while they're over there, he either forgot to bring his meds or thought things were going so well he no longer needed his meds. But he ended up coming back and having a psychotic episode where his girlfriend had to call, and they had to take him and put him in the hospital. And they tried to insert that same drug back in him. But now, because he went off of it, which happens a lot of times, is the drug's no longer working for him.
Really?
Yeah. And eventually what ended up happening is I kept getting a hold of him, but eventually they found him in his apartment, deceased.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the family never told me what happened, but my obviously thought process is that, he committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So this is nothing anybody did. He didn't do anything to cause it. And that happens a lot of times in between the ages of, especially when the hormones are firing off, the brain just doesn't, because it isn't done developing till about 25. So all those years where you're the teenage years, especially college years, it's when all that stuff starts happening, is it just misfires, something doesn't develop right. And that's when things start going bad. And that's not, you don't get to choose that. It's not because of I didn't work hard enough, I didn't study hard enough. It just happens.
Yeah, no, that's a crazy story. Sorry about that, but I'm glad you're able to be a part of his life.
Yeah. We were good friends. It was awesome. Yeah.
But no, and that example is a great one of where it's not all just like, hey, the choices they made, and but like you can see how that as you said, like as the stigma though, is where people like, I'd rather go help out a dog or from being stranded because it didn't do anything to get stranded. It needs help. Or then people go, well, that person's out there because they got addicted. They chose to do drugs, or they chose this, or they chose to be lazy. There's that, because the American persona is like pull yourself up from the bootstraps, and there's and it's like anything else. Like I always kind of joke, it's like you agree with stuff like 80%. It's like the whole capitalist argument. Like I'm like an 80% capitalist. Like I don't think it's all should be based on that. There's that 20% you have to take in consideration. I think people don't you don't look at the full picture and have a big understanding of what the big problem is. They just make general assumptions like we do in life just to be able to put it in a shelf in their brain and put it away if they want to.
Yeah, I think that's all of it. And we worship being independent and, basically putting your boots on and tighten the straps and I'm going to do better. I'm going to make it. I mean, I truly believed when I grew up, I was always taught that I could accomplish anything as long as I didn't quit. I worked hard and just kept pushing for it. I could do that. That was my belief. And then there were things in my life that I learned. God helped me wake up to the fact that I can't do anything without it.
Like play an instrument.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I used to play guitar when I first was young, but then sports came along and I said,
okay. So now going back to my intro, you are like the 5-tool athlete. You just sort of, picked and choose what you wanted to do. Like I'm rhythmically challenged. Like,
well, now I wish I would have. I mean, football, wrestling, all that stuff was great, but right now I'd love to pick up a guitar and play.
Right? No, I actually thought the same thing. The funny part too is like with all the time I've coached in athletics and known a ton of successful people in sports, I know more people have done better with careers in music than they have in sports. Or at least I would say creative arts even.
What I love about the music and all that is that it's like, I suppose, golf or some of the other things that aren't like football and that, but music is something that I'd love to, when I'm in a bad mood or whatever, go over and play the guitar or something to try to hear that. But you can play it. You can do music probably on your deathbed, so laying down there, I could probably, but I mean, what I'm saying? It just, to me, seems, and I blew that off so quickly. And now it's one of those things like, I wish I would have taken a typing course, not only that, most typing courses were in like home ec. And there were a lot of women in home ec, Rob. And I don't know what I was thinking. I was in there lifting weights and doing that. Home ec would have been a great sideshow to go learn how to type and do all the stuff that they learned that I didn't get.
There's so many times in life where I'm upset with my guidance counselors. Like
okay,
no one told me you could
let's
do
start
this.
slamming guidance counselor. That should get us a long way.
Absolutely. It's like, people always want to be like, oh, it was my parents. No, it was the guidance counselor.
We can have the Rob and John Slam Everybody podcast. I think that'll work.
Right. Well, this is more or less as therapy for me. I don't know if you've realized this is. It's like I go talk to smarter people than me and go, oh yeah, no, okay, that makes sense. Like
exactly.
that's all.
Oh gosh.
So we'll go. If someone wants to help out with His Will Homes, if they, it's from my research on it, it's way more than what we've just said in the last, 20 or so minutes.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to put into one conversation all what it does. But if someone wanted to find out more and get connected, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I always talk to people. The best way to get connected is to go on our website or on any of our social media platforms. We're on almost everything. I think the only one we haven't been utilizing is Twitter, but we found out that a lot of the younger generation. Let me tell you a quick story.
Oh yeah.
We go to start. Hey, we're going to start working through social media, let people know who we are. So we start doing Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and we're working it pretty hard. And I get an opportunity to get some free interns that actually you see in the Department of Labor pay for. So I got 2 free interns to help me with the social media. And we have a first meeting, and I go, hey, this is where we're at. We're really doing well. We just want to up our game a little bit. And I say, we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And they both look at me and go, we're never on any of that. I go, well, I was wondering why our analytics were showing we were missing 20 something down to teens. And they go, yeah, we're on Snapchat and TikTok. We never go on it.
Yeah.
Well, if we want a job, we go to LinkedIn. But other than that, we're never on the other 2 platforms.
They don't want to be on the platforms their parents are on.
I was like, oh my God. So now we got them working those. But so we're on all the platforms. So you can, and there's an email that will get to us almost, from any of those, but it's info and then our name, hiswillhomes.org is where you can get a hold of us. If you want to, we're looking for volunteers that have almost any type of skill set, with what we're doing. We could probably use you in any area. And what we like to do is put people where their passion and skill set meet, because then you're motivated and enthused about doing it versus being a drudgery. But then also, I always talk to people about, they say, so how do we help? And I say, well, just like everybody else, every nonprofit, your time, your talent, your treasure are critical to us. We need all 3 and we can't operate without it. But the one that a lot of people forget about, that to me, maybe the most powerful, and it costs you nothing, is sharing your world. You, Rob, and other people out there know people I'll never know, and they will know people that they will never know, and it keeps going. So every time you mention us and talk about us to other people in your world, they may be the person that can touch our organization more than money or anything else you could give. So always, and don't forget about sharing us with the people in your world, because that's critical to us. And then, the biggest one is pray for us. We're trying to help people, and we need lots of prayer to cover us so that we know what direction to tilt or pivot to, and what to do and what to say. So pray for us that we do this well and do it right, and can really reach out there and touch these individual lives.
No, absolutely. That all sounds great. We'll put the website, the email, and some of the links to your social media in the description of this, so if people can find it easily just by clicking in there. And then anything else I missed, John, that you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, Rob, I think you touched on everything. I mean, like you said, what we're trying to do with the platform and really the platform, we think, I talked about that shack, is that we see 5 barriers. And let me cover this real quick. The first one is stigma, and both in them, the people that have it, because they feel bad about themselves because they're told that, and then what other people think about them. And then you have the H in that is housing. And to us, that's the biggest problem, and the one that we're trying to basically take care of. And that's why we're called His Will Homes, because we're emphasizing the home part of the barriers. And there's not enough of it. And what's out there is deplorable. It's not very good in most cases. And so we want to fix that problem. And then aloneness, it's deadly. These people feel like they're by themselves. They have no hope, and they don't know where to turn a lot of times, and ends up in a disaster. And we want to fix that. So aloneness. And then the care is a lot of times inadequate, and there's not enough of it. They can't find it, but also it's not person-centered. We need to make sure that care is person-centered. And then knowledge. this is I just can't believe stat that we have in the US, but from the time of onset to actually time of getting treatment for the average is 11 years.
Whoa.
And that 11 years is critical to how long it takes them to get back, to learn to manage it, to have a fulfilled life. And that obviously causes critical problems, and they become harder to manage and house if they continue to go down without that length of time without getting help. So we believe
11 years from like it takes for someone to sort of go, hey, I have a problem, to go get help.
Yeah, a lot of times. And you look and I search, and there's a lot of information out there, but it's just, I don't think they're finding it. The information can be difficult to find. And the whole problem is really, Rob, is that we have a fracture size. I mean, it's just totally broken and everywhere. There's no central location. It's difficult to find things. So our platform, we hope to bring a lot of things to mental health to where it's like a one-place shop. You get training, you get a community that loves you, and you can share your ideas. So the platform is critical. But from that platform, we believe we can generate enough revenue streams from advertising, sponsorships, memberships, and all that, selling some training. We're going to obviously give a lot for free as well. But we think we can build those revenue streams to then build the housing, which is, to me, the biggest piece and hardest one to do. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we hope to do and the more people we get on that platform, even if you're not participating a lot, but if you get on there and on there occasionally, the more people we get there, the more success, the more money we can raise from advertising. And so joining the platform and being a part of it is another way you can help us. Is when it comes out, we hope to have the first minimum viable product out by June 15th. And so if you get on the platform, people are going to see you're on there, and that's going to help us generate revenue, obviously advertising dollars, to where we can build homes for these people. So we think with this out-of-box solution that we kind of have, that we can change how we do mental health, and we can help a lot of people.
No, I'm excited to see where it goes. Like, I'd love to stay in touch and make sure this, see the path you guys are going down and see the fruits of it down the road.
Yeah, I'd love that, Rob. Talk to you anytime, bud.
All right, perfect, John. I appreciate the time so much. I'll get a link to this here real soon.
All right, see ya.
All right, see ya.